I already made a video breaking down Odin's character a long time ago now, but in that video I focused almost exclusively on Odin when he's being Odin, and that's really only half of his character. The other half of the time, Odin is pretending to be someone else, and in that disguise he reveals some aspects of his character that we never see otherwise. In disguise, it becomes clear that Odin's greatest flaw is his impatience. He actually could have gotten everything he wanted in this story if he had not been so greedy, if he would have sat back and waited for the right opportunity to present itself, instead of lunging for the object of his desires as soon as he could. So the purpose of this video is to examine Odin's time pretending to be Tyr, to cover some aspects of his character I missed in that first video, and also to discuss how kind of really terrible that disguise actually is. Tyr's behavior is completely inconsistent. He contradicts himself a dozen different times. He constantly reacts in ways that Tyr just should not react, or gets upset and angry at things that don't make sense for him to care about in the first place. He is openly manipulative and conniving, purposefully tries to create conflict between other characters. He gives away hints to his true identity over and over and over again. So in addition to examining Odin's character, I am also going to point out every single time he lets the mask slip, when he accidentally reveals who he truly is, and there are a lot of them. Alright, so let's start at the start with his very first cutscene. We're going to watch the scene where Kratos and Atreus free Tyr, and as you watch all of these cutscenes, I encourage you to look for the inconsistencies in his behavior on your own. Alright, here it is.
This is the god of war.
Those blades. I know you. God killer. Have you come for me now?
Only to free you.
Stay away! Brother, let me try. Tyr! Look, you know me, don't you? You killed Mimir! No!
Yeah, we brought him right back.
You stay away from me, you monsters!
Stop! We need him!
Right from the start, Odin's performance as Tyr is melodramatic, exaggerated, and silly. This is Odin's idea of a man broken by torture. Wild mood swings, emotional outbursts, running and shouting like a chicken with its head cut off, terrified of everything, anxious and neurotic, refusing to listen to reason. Of course, in Valhalla, we spent a lot of time with the real Tyr, and we learned that Tyr was never broken by his confinement or torture. In spite of everything, he maintained his emotional and spiritual fortitude. Tyr is actually an extremely strong character. This broken man we meet in this cutscene is just a ruse. It is a tool crafted by Odin. For whatever reason, he has calculated that a broken Tyr will be more effective at achieving his goals. I also suspect that Odin never could have imitated the real Tyr's true behavior even if he wanted to. Odin is not capable of being as emotionally strong and supportive as the real Tyr. It just goes against everything in his nature. Anyway, at first, this Tyr is very calm. He suspects that Kratos has come to kill him and he does not express any fear of death. But he is actually doing something else in this moment too. Throughout this game, something both Tyr and Odin keep doing is purposefully reminding Kratos of who he used to be. The God Slayer, the ghost of Sparta, the man consumed by rage, the killer, the murderer. It is a subtle attempt to undermine his growth, to very slowly chip away at his emotional defenses. We'll see more examples of this later. Later in this scene, Tyr suddenly grows very afraid. All of a sudden, death at the hands of Kratos, something he did not appear to care about at all 1 moment ago, is so terrifying to him that he has a complete freak out. I think most of us were willing to accept these wild swings in emotion because we assumed that Tyr had been psychologically broken by his torture. However, in hindsight, knowing what we know now, this swing in emotion is obviously very artificial. We have multiple examples of actually broken characters in this game. Freya at the start, Sindri at the end, even Thor comes off as very broken, and none of them behave in this comical, over-the-top way. Their behavior is consistent and logical in a way that Tyr's never is. Alright, let's watch the next scene, where fake Tyr supposedly returns to his senses, and pay close attention to what he reacts to, why his behavior changes. Here it is.
We're just trying to get
Get
you
away
out.
from me, please.
Take you somewhere safe,
I
away
beg
from
you.
Odin.
Show mercy.
This is my father. We help people.
I don't belong out here, please. It's worse when he's angry.
Father!
Are you not a soldier? Are you not a leader of men? Master yourself! My son brought us to this place. For you! Look at him!
You. Why? You don't know me.
I know what you stood for. You helped the giants. We're returning the favor.
We?
We are leaving. Are you coming with us?
Here. Your statue in the lake. You had a spear. I thought you needed a weapon.
Walking stick? No. A kind thought, but no. Thank you, no.
The way Tyr goes from being so totally shattered that he cannot listen to reason to being basically totally fine is definitely a bit suspicious. But notice what actually brings about the change in Tyr's behavior. The catalyst comes when he learns something. Something Odin did not know before. Something that changes all of his plans. Atreus says, "You helped the giants. We are returning the favor." And Tyr reacts by saying, "Wait, we?" Atreus has just revealed to Odin, the mortal enemy of the giants, that he himself is a giant. Probably the last remaining giant in Midgard. Exactly the person Odin was searching for in the last game. That was why Baldur came knocking on Kratos' door in the first place. And so Tyr's behavior immediately changes, because now Odin is thinking to himself, okay, well I've got to find out more about this, and I'm not going to do that by acting like a crazy person. He has two primary motivations when it comes to this Tyr disguise. The first is to learn as much about his enemies as possible, and as we've seen, he's already been successful there. The second purpose is to push his enemies towards pacifism, to persuade Kratos, Atreus, and the rest to not pursue Ragnarok, to leave Asgard and thus Odin alone. After this cutscene, there's a lot of dialogue between these three characters we need to cover. The first question Tyr asks is, "What are your names?" which is an inconsistency. 10 minutes ago, Tyr knew who Kratos was. He recognized the Blades of Chaos immediately. He knew Kratos' past. He even calls Kratos a Spartan at one point. He should already know Kratos' name. This is Odin making a mistake, an admittedly small mistake, but it's only the first of many. If the good guys had been paying closer attention to all these little mistakes and inconsistencies, they might have suspected that there was something very wrong with Tyr before it was too late. But let's move on. The next question Tyr asks is, how does a son of a Spartan come to speak for the Jotnar? This is Odin revealing what he really cares about. More than anything, he wants to peel the layers off this new mystery. Atreus has some kind of relationship with the giants, and he intends to find out what that is. It is important to note that Odin has no idea how long this disguise might actually last. He could not have predicted that they would take him back to their secret base and keep him there basically forever. He is trying to get as much information as quickly as possible to get at the most important information first, before his disguise is blown. Next, Tyr asks a couple questions he already knows the answers to, but he's got to maintain the disguise. He's trying to mask his true intentions. So he asks why Atreus freed him, then about what happened to Mimir, and then about Baldur's fate. Something interesting here is that Odin probably does not know the full story surrounding Baldur's death. He clearly knows that it was Kratos who killed him, but I doubt he knows all of the specifics. So this is him subtly trying to learn the full story, which works. Kratos and Mimir tell him everything. It is also around this point that Tyr reveals he has abjured from all violence, that he will never take up arms again no matter what. He will actually break this supposedly solemn oath in the not-so-distant future, but for now it provides a reasonable explanation as to why this Tyr will consistently refuse to oppose Odin's tyranny without raising any serious suspicions. It also provides him with a moral stance from which he can argue against Ragnarok. And then there's another cutscene in which that prophesied deadly battle is discussed, and once again, Tyr's behavior is inconsistent, so let's watch that.
Before we go any further, the truth. What is it you want from me? You speak of Ragnarok. Is it a god of war you came to find? Is that the Tyr you need?
Atreus.
Forgive me. I am grateful for my freedom. But if you want me to follow you to war, or worse yet, lead you to it, then kill me now. My fight is gone. Damage is done.
No one's killing you, brother.
Better that than to live to see Ragnarok.
We do not seek war.
We just want some answers.
I don't know how to help you.
It doesn't matter. The Giants trusted you. That's the Tyr we need. We need you.
All right. All I ask is for a good night's rest. And maybe some food. I think you killed the guards bringing me dinner.
Does anyone else remember like 10 minutes ago when Tyr was all like, "Oh, don't kill me, please, mercy, mercy." And now he's like, "Kill me now, I'm ready to die." Dude, pick a lane. Of course, the real reason for these changes in behavior is because Tyr is saying whatever is most convenient for Odin's manipulations at that particular moment. And he assumes people are not going to notice the subtle inconsistencies, or even if they do, they will dismiss them as the mere mood swings of a man broken by decades of torture and trauma. With all that said, Odin's manipulations are kind of brilliant here. Tyr's opposition to Ragnarok is perfectly understandable and even kind of persuasive. Ragnarok, as first prophesied, would have been an event of unprecedented death and destruction. If that war can be avoided, it would not just be beneficial to Odin, who is of course prophesied to die in battle, but beneficial to the entire world. In this pacifist disguise, Odin is able to argue convincingly against pursuing Ragnarok. And because he is speaking with Tyr's voice, he knows his opinion will be listened to and respected by the good guys. At the end of this scene, when Tyr asks for a good night's rest and some food, what he's actually doing is trying to get the heroes to reveal the location of their hideout. and that works too. They take him straight to Sindri's home among the branches of the World Tree. After this scene, there is more discussion about the events of the previous game, during which Atreus briefly mentions that the giants are gone before moving on with the rest of the story. But then Tyr interrupts him to ask, wait, the giants are gone? Which again reveals what Odin is actually interested in. He does not know anything about the fate of the Jotnar, his mortal enemies. This is very important information to him. You can just imagine how excited he must be in this moment to learn something about the state of Jotunheim, a realm that has been locked to him for a very long time. I bet Odin cannot believe how successful this disguise has already turned out to be, how much he has learned about his enemies in such a short time. The location of their hideout, the fact that Atreus is a Jotun, the apparent extinction of the rest of the giants, the true story behind Baldur's death. Next, let's watch when Tyr first arrives at Sindri's home. As you watch, pay very close attention to the things Tyr says. Ask yourself, why is Odin choosing to say these things? What are his true goals? Because with Odin, everything is a manipulation. Okay, here it is.
I may need time to construct a bed for someone of your scale.
Please, don't go to trouble on my account. Too much space would be unsettling. Do you have a broom closet?
Yes, but it's where I keep my brooms.
That's all I need. To be honest, it's all I can manage.
All right. Some food then.
Oh, nothing much. Perhaps some hardtack.
Hardtack.
Any sort of humble ship's biscuit will do. With a pinch of salt?
Well, I'll see what I can find.
When Tyr asks for a broom closet to stay in, what he's really doing is asking for somewhere quiet and out of the way where he can hide his gateway back to Asgard, somewhere it will not be noticed by others. And make a point to remember that line about simple ship's biscuits going forward, because it will be important later on. Right now, Odin is putting on this performance of, oh, I'm Tyr, and I'm so simple, and I'm so humble, and I love sleeping in broom closets, and I'm happy to eat hardtack. If you don't know anything about hardtack, it is a very dense, very hard, very dry and tasteless biscuit that, because it can last for months without spoiling, was often eaten on long sea voyages in the past. Descriptions of hardtack say that it is as hard as a brick but with slightly less flavor. It is a completely unappetizing and unappealing food item. In short, it is a ridiculous thing for Tyr to ask for. The thing is, Odin does not really know what it's like to be humble, so his idea of humility is this ridiculous caricature, and it is a performance he is not able to maintain for long. In the very next scene, he contradicts himself again. In the next scene, all of our favorite characters sit down to eat breakfast together, and Tyr continues to manipulate everyone around him. As you watch, think about what our hero's next objective is revealed to be, and consider who is actually going to most benefit. Okay, here it is.
That is not the risk that concerns me. Do we trust the path they would put us on?
I trust their wisdom, and this is the closest thing to hearing directly from them.
You are certain the giants would not counsel war?
I said that they were wise. In my experience, that goes with being peaceful.
Oh, little brother. Told you we needn't worry.
Is this sausage?
Sure, why not?
I remember food tasting better.
I suppose you'd like to try cooking for this lot.
I accept.
What?
Atreus, we are planning our next move.
Oh, so where are we going?
Alfheim. Home of the elves.
Alfheim? You hate Alfheim. Why would we move there?
Who there? Oh, we are seeking information.
The Shrine of Groa, young one. Your father tells me you found it there.
Groa? The Knowledge Keeper? Oh, maybe there's a secret there I can unlock.
Aye. Who better than the seer who saw everything?
Tyr, you're really up for coming with us?
I am. Whenever you're ready. Well, whenever your father's ready, I should say. If my counsel might help you towards the answers you seek, it's the least I can do to repay you. Plus, I think it will do me well to see the light of Elfheim again.
That elf light is some good shit.
At the start of this scene, Atreus listens through the door while Kratos and Tyr discuss their next plan. They will travel to Alfheim to find Groa's shrine. Okay, so Groa was a Jotun sorceress with a talent for prophecy. She was the one who first foresaw the calamitous battle of Ragnarok, and was later murdered by Odin. In the previous game, our heroes discovered several shrines which illustrated the life stories of important giants. In between games, Atreus discovered that these shrines included hidden information meant only for their fellow giants. And so, Kratos and Tyr have decided to return to Groa's shrine to see what other prophecies the giants may have hidden there. But who does this actually benefit? Kratos does not care about prophecy, and he is really not interested in Ragnarok. Atreus had not even considered going to Alfheim to find Groa's shrine. When you think about it, the only person who really gets anything out of this is Odin, the guy who is obsessed with prophecy, obsessed with preventing Ragnarok, obsessed with knowledge and knowing everything so that he can control everything. It all happens off-screen, so I can't know for sure, but I strongly suspect that it was Tyr who subtly pushed the conversation towards Groa's shrine, even though he claims it was Mimir's idea. A manipulator like Odin should be able to make someone think they are coming to a decision on their own, even when it was the manipulator's plan all along. When Atreus listens at the door, it is definitely Tyr who is pushing Kratos towards this path, under the guise of seeking the wise counsel of the supposedly peaceful giants. It's actually kind of crazy that Tyr chooses to join them when you think about it. He claims to be a radical pacifist who refuses to engage in combat or bloodshed of any kind. He is very well aware that Alfheim is still being ravaged by a perpetual and savage war between light elves and dark elves. If they journey to Alfheim, it is inevitable that they will get caught in the fighting. Tyr, if his motivations were consistent, should not want any part of this. Odin makes another mistake when they sit down to eat. Remember when Tyr was so simple and so humble that he was happy to eat nothing but hardtack, one of the worst foods ever invented by humanity? And yet, the very next morning, he is the only person at the table who complains about the taste of the food. Overnight, Tyr's opinion on meals has completely changed. It turns out that Odin actually prefers a little more flavor in his cuisine. Moving forward, Tyr joins our heroes on their quest through Alfheim, and there is a ton of dialogue we need to look at in this section. Early on, the party is attacked by light elves. It is very clear immediately that this is a kill or be killed situation, and yet, somewhat hilariously, Tyr keeps trying to have a diplomatic discourse with them. Once again, this is Odin putting on a hyperbolic and comical performance, because he doesn't really know how an actual diplomat behaves. There is nothing wise or diplomatic about saying, "Now come on guys, can't we just sit down and talk about this like gentlemen," when someone is actively stabbing you in the face. That's just foolish. Tyr looks like a total idiot here. Next, we should talk about the way Tyr talks about Freya. During the journey, the characters discuss the history of Alfheim. Once upon a time, Freyr, Vanir brother of Freya, negotiated a peace between the Light Elves and the Dark Elves. However, when his sister married Odin, an angry Freya returned to his home of Vanaheim, correctly suspecting that it would soon be invaded by the forces of Asgard, because Odin's promises of peace were obviously a flimsy deception. Unfortunately, in his absence, the elves soon resumed their war. Tyr is extremely critical of Freyr's decisions. He sounds like he hates Freya's brother, which is a strange thing for Tyr to feel but makes perfect sense for Odin. Of course Odin hates Freya, the only person to oppose his marriage to Freya, the person who continues to lead the resistance against his invasion in Vanaheim, the person who has been a thorn in his side for generations. There's also an interesting scene when they reach the light of Alfheim, and Kratos becomes entranced by the light. where he once heard an echo of his dead wife's voice. Afterwards, when the spell has passed, the camera turns to reveal Tyr, quietly watching in the background, who is surely pleased to have observed a new weakness in his enemy. The next scene we are going to watch together is Groa's true prophecy of Ragnarok. As you watch, pay close attention to Tyr's reaction to this new information. Here it is.
Asgard is destroyed? But the other realms thrive?
And Odin dies.
She lied.
Roa lied. Of course she did. Odin's working off a false prophecy.
So then, we can win Ragnarok. But for the first time, we know something Odin doesn't. We just saw we can win. Tyr?
I won't allow prophecy to define my choices.
But we just saw you.
No, Atreus. This is wrong.
Come. There is much to discuss. It is time.
In the original Ragnarok prophecy, the one everyone knows, the one Groa told to Odin, basically the entire world, more or less, was supposed to be destroyed in the battle. But here in the scene, it is revealed that prophecy was a lie. In truth, Groa prophesied that only Asgard would be destroyed, while the rest of the realms would live on. While Atreus and Kratos proceed to get into an argument over their potential involvement, Tyr remains silent, apparently in a state of catatonic shock. So surprised he cannot even speak, which is a weird reaction for Tyr to have, but makes perfect sense for Odin. Odin has just learned that everything he thought he knew about Ragnarok, the great battle for which he has been planning for generations, was completely wrong. The truth is worse than anything he could have imagined. Before, when the prophecy was far deadlier in scope, it would have been easy to persuade the heroes to avoid this disaster. Who wants to fight a battle in which the entire world will be destroyed, including our own homes? But now that it has been revealed that Ragnarok's destruction will be far more limited, that it will only destroy the home of the bad guys, well, that's a much easier sell. Odin just learned that he is totally screwed, and it leaves him speechless. He tries to cover his reaction by pretending to be upset over all the lives that will be lost in Asgard, when what he's really upset about is that, in a single stroke, all of his plans have been made meaningless. After the scene, Tyr is clearly in a state of emotional distress, rushing as quickly as possible to get back to Sindri's home. Of course, he doesn't actually care about returning to Sindri's. What he really wants to do is to return to Asgard, so he can deal with this new revelation and organize a new defense strategy. On the way back, apparently overwhelmed by frustration and panic, Tyr even breaks his pledge to never engage in combat again. He battles with a light elf and knocks it unconscious. The characters don't react much in the moment, but this is actually really crazy. This guy previously claimed he would never fight ever again for any reason. He even said that he was not emotionally or psychologically capable of fighting even if he wanted to. He was very definitive on this point. And here he breaks that pledge for no reason other than that he was annoyed. That should have been seen as a serious red flag. This is exactly the same reason why Odin kills Brock later. Odin has a petulant streak, he has a temper. When things aren't going his way, he gets annoyed and lashes out. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, when you pay attention to fake Tyr's behavior, it becomes obvious that one of Odin's greatest flaws is a lack of patience. Before they leave all five, there's a moment when Atreus falls into the Lake of Souls and Kratos dives in to save him. Then they are both rescued by Tyr. This is a fascinating moment, because Odin could have chosen to not help, and it's very possible that two of his most dangerous enemies might have died right then and there. So then why does Odin choose to help them? Well, firstly, it would be a huge gamble. It's very possible that Kratos could have escaped anyway, and then Odin's disguise would be in big trouble. Secondly, it is an opportunity to gain Kratos' full trust by saving the life of his son. And thirdly, and most importantly, because Odin wants Atreus. He knows that, among Atreus' other godly powers, the kid has an incredible talent for languages, that he can even magically recover otherwise lost languages. In Atreus, he believes he has found a means to decipher the ancient text on the mask, which he thinks will lead him to ultimate knowledge of the nature of existence, which he cares about more than anything else, even more than his personal safety. In the next scene, Tyr begins attempting to sow division between our two main characters, so let's watch that now.
Here you are. A meal fit for a champion?
Enough. I said we would speak no more of that.
Yes, of course. Didn't mean to offend.
I'm not offended. It's just a word.
The word that clouds your judgment.
But-
Use the judgment of a man and not of a child.
But what if Loki going to Ironwood is the only way that...
Atreus. My son. And nothing more. Do you hear me?
I'm not hungry anymore.
Forgive me, Kratos. My words were chosen carelessly.
As Tyr hands the bowl to Atreus, he slaps him on the back like a jerk, grins like a total freak, and says, "A meal fit for a champion." Beyond the simple fact that everything about his behavior in this scene is stilted, awkward, bizarre, and does not match his previous behavior, what's happening here is that Tyr is trying to create conflict between Atreus and Kratos. Odin knows that Atreus wants to be the champion of the giants they saw in that previous prophecy, and he also knows that Kratos absolutely does not want him to be the Jotun champion. There is an opportunity here. Back in their first meeting, Odin learned that he was never going to be able to manipulate Kratos. The Ghost of Sparta has way too much experience with manipulative gods to ever get tricked that way again. But he does still believe that he can manipulate Atreus. So what he needs to do is to separate these two characters. If he can just get Atreus alone, he can persuade the younger and less experienced god to do what he wants. By subtly bringing the topic up at breakfast, or not so subtly, he hopes to create an argument, and it works perfectly. Kratos and Atreus almost immediately start shouting at each other. This is Odin's manipulations at their absolute most effective. The next time we see Tyr is a couple hours later, when Freya joins the heroes at Sindri's home, and as soon as they meet, he immediately begins attempting to subtly turn her against her new allies. Let's watch that scene together now.
Can it be? I never thought I'd have the pleasure of seeing you again, Frigg.
Don't call me that. I haven't been that person in a long time. But I'm happy to see you too. I'd feared the worst for so long, what you must have been through.
Nothing so bad as what you've suffered. Freya, I am so sorry to hear what happened to Baldur. He was only a boy when I saw him last, but I know he meant more to you than anything.
Yes.
And to forbear your vengeance in this way, it's truly an inspiration for those of us who believe in peace.
The only peace these realms will ever know is once Odin is gone. Believe in that.
So you're not here to prevent Ragnarok, you're here to bring it about.
I'm here to make sure Odin doesn't hurt anyone, the way he hurt us.
I can see I've upset you. Forgive me. I am far removed from my days of diplomacy.
First, notice what Tyr calls her. He calls her by the name Frigg, which is her Aesir name. The only other character in the game who calls her Frigg is Odin. Once again, Tyr has made a mistake that the good guys fail to notice. The very next thing he does is to turn the conversation around to Balder. It's very subtle, but this is the exact same thing he did at breakfast in the previous scene. Subtly mention a subject which is ripe for conflict in hopes of sowing division between allies. Odin absolutely does not want Kratos and Freya, two of his deadliest enemies, working together. If he can break them apart, that will be a huge win. And you can see in her reaction that his words did have an effect on Freya. She had to pause for a moment to collect herself. After that, Tyr begins his campaign for peace, which is less effective with Freya than anyone else, because she, more than any other character, knows exactly how evil and destructive Odin's reign of tyranny really is, and she is absolutely dedicated to his destruction. In the face of her conviction, Tyr's attempts fall completely flat. Realizing his mistake, he quickly retreats. In the next scene, during Kratos and Atreus' argument, Tyr mostly just watches from the sidelines, not getting involved. He does not need to get involved, he's already succeeded. When everyone is trying to convince Atreus not to go to Asgard, Tyr does chime in, very briefly, just so he doesn't appear suspicious. But he does not argue against visiting Odin nearly as aggressively as any of the other characters, because of course he wants Atreus to go to Asgard. The next scene we're going to watch together is when Kratos decides to seek the Council of the Norns. Here it is.
Midgard. But if Atreus is in Asgard, there's no getting him back without an army. We should be raising one.
Yes, nothing like a catastrophic war to improve the situation. The boy seems quite capable, perhaps if you simply give him some time.
You are not free of blame here. You encouraged his foolishness, his confusion. I do not seek war. But if Odin has stolen my son, do not doubt the lengths I will go to.
Your nature has always been clear, Kratos. But you, Freya. War as a first resort. That's not the Freya I knew. I hope the Norns can give you the counsel you need. Perhaps mine is no longer of use here.
Tyr, stop. This is no time to divide ourselves further.
I absolutely adore the framing of this shot. The way Tyr very slowly creeps out of the shadows, lurking in the background. I think in the visuals here, the director of this cutscene is showing us that there is something suspicious about this guy, even if we can't quite put all the pieces together yet. Earlier, Tyr's manipulations did have some effect on Kratos. He was at least able to persuade him to seek Groa's shrine in Alfheim, but not anymore. Kratos is definitely aware of the way Tyr pushed his son towards accepting his role as the Jotun champion. Something interesting about Odin's manipulations is that he usually knows when to give up. As soon as he sees how angry Kratos is, he backs off, though not until he gets out one last snide little comment. This is actually a really dangerous moment for Odin. Kratos is only a couple steps away from realizing just how devious Tyr's behavior has truly been. When he realizes that Kratos isn't going to listen, he switches tactics. He tries to work on Freya instead. Of course, his comment, war as a first resort, is ridiculous. Freya already tried peace, and that failed. It only led to disaster. She tried exile, and that ended in sorrow and tragedy too. She is only seeking war after every other option has been exhausted, something the real Tyr should understand. Afterwards, he and Freya have a little powwow where he tries to justify the things he said to Atreus. But it all rings hollow. In this scene, Tyr mostly comes off as petulant and a bit childish. When all his attempts at manipulation fail, all he can do is whine and sulk about it. For all his vast experience and knowledge, Odin seems a bit immature at times. Moving forward, after meeting the Norns, Kratos and Freya become determined to kill Heimdall, Odin's right-hand man. They seek help from Brock and Sindri, who come up with a plan to use Draupnir to craft a special secret weapon. Draupnir is a special treasure the dwarves stole from Odin, which is something no one knew until right now, and watch how Tyr reacts to this revelation.
Draupnir? I bloody knew these two had nicked it. And Odin blamed me for it disappearing.
They stole Draupnir.
We didn't steal nothing. We just ungifted what never should have been gifted in the first place.
So now you intend to kill Heimdall. Violence cannot prevent violence, Kratos. I truly thought you understood that.
No matter what you thought I understood, my son is in danger. I will not allow harm to come to him.
I thought you didn't believe in fate. We are all worried about your son. And we
Enough! Heimdall's a threat, not only to Atreus, but to everyone.
Once again, Tyr has slipped up. He has reacted in a way that he shouldn't have. The real Tyr should not care who stole Draupnir, it has nothing to do with him. But of course, Odin is very interested to learn who stole from him. Notice how he refuses to get out of Sindri's way. It almost looks like a petty little attempt at revenge. As the scene continues, Tyr tries and fails to persuade the heroes to remain peaceful. But no one is interested in his advice anymore. At this point in the story, Tyr's character barely feels relevant at all. Everyone ignores everything he says, he has no influence over the course of events, he just sits around making soup all day. It is interesting that Odin chooses this moment to reapproach Kratos as himself for the first time since the start of the story. After crafting the new Heimdall killing spear, Odin appears in Kratos' path. Of course, the only reason he knows where to find Kratos at all is because he overheard their travel plans while in disguise earlier. I think this appearance is somewhat desperate. His manipulations as Tyr just aren't making any progress at all, so he's trying a different tactic. Instead, he will try to needle at Kratos' insecurities, undermine his sense of purpose, and throw him off balance. If he cannot prevent a battle, perhaps he can at least shake his enemy's confidence enough to cause him to make a deadly mistake. It is a desperate play, but it works. In the scenes that follow, we can see that Kratos is genuinely shaken by Odin's words. He feels lost and alone, he doesn't know what to do next. Once again, Odin's manipulations have borne fruit. Moving forward in the story, while on a mission for the Allfather, Atreus accidentally, or kind of purposefully, frees Garm, a monster wolf with the ability to tear holes in the fabric of reality. Feeling like a failure, Atreus returns home to his father, and of course Tyr is present as well. As we watch this next scene, pay close attention to Tyr's behavior. Ask yourself, why is Odin choosing to behave in this way? Okay, here it is.
Is it over?
No thanks to you.
Where is Atreus?
Atreus? Has the runaway returned and brought all this with him?
It's all my fault. The Hellwalkers... they're everywhere. Everywhere!
That is not your fault.
Yes, it is. There was a wolf in hell. He was in chains and I set him free. I thought that if...
Garm? Great bleeding fuck, lad! You freed Garm!
Garm? Who freed Garm? That's madness. Surely not you, young one.
If the Hound of Hell is loose, he'll chew through the fabric of the realms. Hellwalkers are just the beginning. What were you thinking?
Aye, this is a fuck-up of not insignificant proportions.
What would drive you to such mischief? Is this Loki's doing?
Enough. Leave him. Atreus has made a mistake. One that we will fix together.
After the battle is already over, Tyr exits the house, offering no explanation for his absence. Of course, the true reason for his tardiness is that he was busy being Odin in Asgard just minutes ago. Notice how aggressive Tyr is towards Atreus in this scene. He calls him the runaway, accuses him of causing the disaster, before these characters have any reason to suspect that Atreus has anything to do with it. When Atreus reveals that he released Garm, Tyr joins everyone else in harshly condemning the boy. He's pretty aggressive about it, actually. I think this is a miscalculation on Odin's part. He is trying to regain Kratos' trust. And since he thinks that the father is going to be angry with the son, he pretends to be angry too. But Tyr does not really understand Kratos' character. He believes that Kratos is driven by anger, but that's not true. Kratos is actually driven by his love for his son, and so Tyr's attempt to ingratiate himself with his enemy fails yet again. Odin constantly underestimates and misunderstands Kratos' nature and motivations, and that is why he ultimately fails. Another small detail I noticed while editing this video is that Kratos first hands Mimir to Tyr, which makes sense. They're old friends, Tyr should be happy to carry the head around. But Tyr does not react at all, he shows no interest. And instead, it is Freya, someone who doesn't like the smartest man in the world at all, who accepts the extra baggage. Just one more little inconsistency in Tyr's behavior that our heroes failed to take notice of. After Kratos and Atreus return from their wolf hunting adventure, Tyr makes his biggest slip yet, more than ever before. Through his behavior, he reveals what Odin truly cares about. Also, while rewatching the scene, I noticed something that I never noticed before. There's an explanation for a plot hole here that I never recognized, so let's watch it together.
Here's what he cares about most. More than Ragnarok or anything. Is this mask. Anyone recognize it?
That thing? Ugh, it's a dead end. He's been faffing around with that since before I knew him. To be honest, I thought the giants were just having a laugh with that one.
Okay, fine. No.
You're wrong, Mimir. This mask is no fraud. The giants didn't make it, and only a few of them ever glimpsed it in their visions. They never knew its origin, but some believed it was a way to gaze into the secrets of creation itself.
Is it an oracle?
Much, much more. Imagine becoming one with a source of infinite knowledge. This is why Odin tortured me.
Is Heimdall our focus or not?
We will rewrite our fate another way.
Then I'm going back to Vanaheim. If we're not taking the fight to Odin, I should help my brother stand against him.
We will join her when we can.
Alright, so Odin is absolutely obsessed with this mask. He cares more about learning its secrets than he cares about anything else in the world. He is so obsessed that, even while disguised as Tyr, at a mere glimpse of a drawing, he cannot help but launch into a zealous monologue over its mysteries. More than ever before, this is Tyr revealing who he truly is. But let's talk about that plot hole I mentioned before. Something I was always confused about was Kratos' confrontation with Heimdall in Vanaheim. It just seemed so random to me. Like, what is Heimdall doing here? Why would Odin make the mistake of sending Heimdall into Kratos' path? And it is a huge mistake. This has terrible consequences for Odin. He loses his top lieutenant and hands his enemies a key to unlock Asgard's defenses. Way back in my video examining Heimdall's character, I hypothesized that maybe Heimdall had decided on his own, without orders from Odin, to travel to Vanaheim. That this confrontation was a result of his own vanity, and not any mistake on the part of Odin. But after a close rewatch of this scene, I have changed my mind. In this scene, Freya splits apart from the group and travels alone to Vanaheim. Kratos does not go with her, at least not yet. Notice that when Kratos tells Atreus that they will follow her, he says it under his breath so that only Atreus can hear his words, meaning that Odin did not hear that part. He does not know that Kratos will soon be traveling to Vanaheim too. Odin, while in disguise, watches this split happen and sees an opportunity. His enemies have split into two groups, weakening themselves. This is his chance to kill or capture both Freya and her brother without Kratos interfering. That is why he immediately sends Heimdall to Vanaheim, setting up his disastrous confrontation with Kratos. The next scene we're going to watch takes place directly after the death of Heimdall, and through Tyr we will get to see Odin's reaction to that news. Here it is.
Is it true? Heimdall's dead. I can't believe it. There's no stopping it now. Odin swore peace only so long as you spilled no more Aesir blood.
I refuse that deal.
Yet he honored it. But now...
But what? You and I know better than anyone that Odin's promises never last. We have the advantage now. It's time to bring him down.
No.
None of you understand what's coming. Odin's vengeance will be his only concern.
Not his only concern. The mask. Whatever knowledge it unlocks, that's what Odin wants more than anything. If I go back to Asgard,
Go back. Go back. Do not ask me to put you at risk again.
He's at risk where he stands, Kratos. We all are.
From a tactical perspective, am I wrong?
I don't much like it, but it is our best play. Dividing Odin's focus would buy us time.
And give us a pair of eyes in the enemy's inner sanctum.
But if there is truly a source of infinite knowledge, you can't let Odin have it.
Aye. And once he has what he needs from you.
All of Tyr's words here are totally disingenuous and manipulative. He is attempting to twist the blame for Heimdall's death away from the Aesir and pin it on Kratos. Odin's offer of a truce was never anything more than a self-serving attempt to manipulate his enemies into doing his bidding, and the real Tyr should know that. Tyr is attempting to frighten them, to make them fear Odin's vengeance. He is also the first person in the room to voice support for Atreus' plan to return to Asgard. In fact, it seems as if Tyr completely loses all concern for Odin's vengeance as soon as the possibility of Atreus returning to Asgard is mentioned. And there is some hilarious irony in Tyr speaking the line, "and give us a pair of eyes in the enemy's inner sanctum," which is of course exactly what he has been doing this entire time. But I want to rewind a little bit, back to the beginning of the scene. One of the first things Tyr says in response to the death of Heimdall is, "I can't believe it." And I think this is one of the first times Odin is actually speaking the truth. I bet he really can't believe it. You can hear the shock in his voice. He didn't think Kratos actually had the power to defeat the seemingly invulnerable Heimdall, his top lieutenant, one of the most dangerous and most powerful gods ever in a series famous for its incredibly dangerous and powerful gods. This may be the first time he realizes just how dangerous Kratos really is. The first time he realizes that he could actually lose this thing. Moving forward, the next time we see Tyr is also the last time we see Tyr, or at least this version of Tyr. This is the scene where he makes his last mistake, when someone finally points out that, hey, nothing this guy is saying makes any sense. First, let's watch Tyr's reaction to the return of Atreus.
You're back.
Figure that one out.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I just hope unlocking this thing was worth the cost.
You have it! What did it show you?
I didn't get to use it. They found out about Heimdall. I had to run. But at least Odin can't use it either.
But if you didn't get any answers from the mask, all you've done is steal Odin's greatest treasure. Just after your father's killed his most loyal ally. None of us are safe, even here.
So we have no choice. We find Surtur, sound Gjallarhorn, and bring Odin to justice. Now.
You'd incinerate every soul in Asgard and call it self-defense?
Does he ever suggest plans or just crap on everyone else's?
The obvious plan is staring you in the face. We don't need Odin to use this. We can slip into Asgard and do it ourselves, right under his nose. We gain the knowledge we need to shatter this prophecy of war once and for all.
Except begging your pardon, you don't have a way into Asgard.
This occurs only minutes after Atreus escaped with the mask, which must have been a terrible and desperate moment for Odin. He must have rushed back into his Tyr disguise and back into the broom closet as quickly as possible. And notice the first thing he asks when he gets out. You have it. And what did it show you? Listen to how breathless his voice is, how excited he is. He literally cannot wait to find out what that mask will reveal. Look at the way he reaches after Atreus when the kid walks away. It must be taking all of Odin's powers of self-control to keep himself from snatching that mask out of Atreus' hands. The thing he has been working for hundreds of years is right in front of him, and he is not able to actually touch it without arousing suspicion. It must be excruciating for him. I also really like Freyr's comment here. Does he ever suggest plans or just crap on everyone else's? And it's a good question. What plan has Tyr ever suggested? All he ever does is tell everyone else to sit and wait, to do nothing. And these characters are getting sick of it. The plan Tyr does suggest here is completely insane. Risk everything by sneaking into Asgard to use the mask before Odin does? It would never work. They could never get past Asgard's defenses without Odin noticing. This would always end in violence. The true reason for this absurd suggestion is that Odin is getting desperate. He wants that mask and he wants it now. And he's not willing to be patient anymore. Instead of doing the smart thing and sitting back and waiting for the right opportunity to come along so he can snatch it, he is going to try something drastic. He is going to take a huge risk. And that is what happens in the next scene. Here it is.
Now all we need's a way to Asgard.
I know I've been a burden to you all. I know you've questioned why you even pulled me out of that hole. I have too. But it's clear now. This is what I'm needed for. This is my purpose. One last time, I will pick up my spear and I will lead us to Asgard.
Excuse me, but if you got a way to Asgard, where's that idea been this whole fucking while?
That's rather a fair question, brother.
You withheld Asgard.
You would have gotten us all killed, and we needed to give Loki time to find his destiny. Here it is. It's all led to this.
If we can get inside, I'm going after Odin.
I will not stop you. We can do both.
Spot on, brother. If the mask doesn't give us an out, we'll still have the drop on him.
Works for me.
Let's do it then, and quickly, before he sees us coming.
He does hate surprises.
Slow down, you damn spruce. I still want to hear the details on this, new way to Asgard you got. Spill it!
It's an ancient path. We can't reach it from here.
Where then?
Let me collect my things and I'll show you.
You ain't got no things. And where are you going with that mask, Brock? That belongs to the kid. He earned it. All you done was make passable dirt soup.
Brock, it's okay.
No, it ain't. This ain't right. All the pieces ain't welding together true. Like, what's with him calling you Loki anyway? You know that ain't his name. Hey! I'm talking to you! You never shut up!
Okay, so ignoring the terrible tragedy of watching one of our favorite characters get brutally murdered, my favorite part of this scene is watching everyone's reaction to Tyr's big speech. Everyone is just sort of sitting around, staring at each other like, what? I particularly love Freya's reaction in the background. Watch what he does here. He just sort of shrugs his shoulders and looks around like, anybody else hearing what this dude is saying? What Tyr just did was completely flip-flop. Proclaim the exact opposite of everything he's been saying for the entire game. This whole time, Tyr has been saying, no, don't fight Odin, don't do anything, just sit around and eat soup with me, guys, come on. And now, all of a sudden, he's completely changed his mind. He wants to do something drastic and crazy. At first, everyone is surprised, but then they all start to go along with it, like a bunch of doofuses. None of them realizes how suspicious this is except for Brock. In my video on Brock's character, I spent a lot of time discussing why it had to be him who did this, so I won't repeat any of that here. Let's stay focused on Tyr. For a single moment, Odin thinks he's gotten away with this. He picks up the mask without anyone noticing and starts walking away. He's going to dip into his broom closet, use the portal to Asgard he's set up there, and escape. He will have finally gotten the thing he's always wanted, infinite knowledge. And all of these dopes were too stupid to stop him. But Odin made a mistake. As Tyr, he has spent most of his time sitting in the background and observing his enemy, carefully waiting for his opportunities to strike. Never drawing too much attention to himself, always retreating when confronted. But here in this final scene, in order to get what he wants right now without waiting, he makes himself the star of the show, the center of attention. And in that spotlight, it was inevitable that someone was going to notice that his shit stinks. As I already discussed earlier, his greatest flaw, the one that destroys him, is Odin's impatience. He is too impatient to wait for the right opportunity to steal the mask, and he is too impatient to put up with Brock's nagging questions. He gets irritated, loses control over his temper, and lashes out, ruining his disguise, losing the mask, and giving his enemies a really compelling reason to seek his destruction in the process. Odin's time in disguise is fascinating. At times, it is perfect. No one ever suspects a thing. He gains so much intelligence on his enemies and their plans. He is able to sow conflict between allies. However, on the other hand, the intelligence he gathers causes him to make two fatal mistakes, sending Heimdall to his death in Vanaheim and murdering Brock. His attempts at manipulating Kratos and Freya fail over and over again. His arguments for peace are hollow and unconvincing in the face of Odin's reign of terror. I think that moment when Tyr transforms into Odin, when it's revealed that Tyr has been Odin the entire time, that's going to go down as one of the most shocking twists in the history of video game stories. That disguise was a dramatic and risky plan that almost worked. Odin almost got everything he always wanted. But when you rewatch all these cutscenes, what you see is a character who cannot help but be himself. He cannot help but reveal his true motivations and obsessions again and again. At the end of the game, in his final moments, Atreus begs Odin to just make a different choice, to do anything else. And Odin cannot. He never could. And his failed attempts at pretending to be Tyr are perhaps the most damning proof of his inability to change.